Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Pastor Chad, lead pastor at Freedom Life Church. We're discussing this last Sunday's message. This last Sunday was pretty special because it was Father's Day. We did a lot of cool things for our fathers. We gave away prizes. If you missed that, sorry. But we gave away prizes. We had
lots of root beer and beef jerky. It was amazing.
We had a recliner for the oldest dad. That was cool. It was a fun Sunday, and we got to talk about what it is to be a father biblically. I know that was a lot of fun for you to talk about.
It was.
Yeah. So if you missed that, check it out on our Facebook. It should be at the link below. Check it out, come back up, and then see what we have to say about this last Sunday's message. Yeah. Usually during this video, we like to talk about some of the things that Chad didn't have time to talk about or left out on purpose. And so what are some of those things from this last Sunday that you kind of left out?
Well, the first thing I will say is that it's interesting. I actually said it at the very beginning of the sermon that normally I don't necessarily feel obligated or captive to a holiday when it comes to what we're going to discuss that day. You know, I maybe sometimes I militate against that. Like I try not to be so, cliche or whatever. But I really felt compelled to stop, the We Are FLC series for a week, kind of take a break from that for a week and talk about, deal with fathers. And, we didn't do that for Mother's Day. I actually was surprised that I didn't get anybody making a comment about it. Hey, why didn't you do a Mother's Day deal if you did Father's Day? I think because, moms got their acts together.
Yeah, they're perfect.
Moms are amazing.
Y'all are awesome.
Moms are amazing. And so,
I'm not being sarcastic either.
So they're great. I think it's the role of dad where maybe we struggle more. And I think culturally speaking, that's really not arguable. Like that's not an opinion. Yeah. That's
you
fact.
Brought up the culture and the sitcoms.
That's just fact. I mean, that's been a fact for a long time that it's really the role of dad that we've really seen a lot of breakdown. But again, that's the reason why I started there on Sunday it was just so important to go. I mean, this is the reason why I think it is really, I think, a spiritual battle, a spiritual attack that we've got going on there. I think that's a real thing because I think the enemy knows as well as we do. Yeah. How important that is, even in the natural sense. I think the enemy knows that. I think how important that role is in the life of a child, of a son or a daughter. I think it's important, and I think the enemy knows that. But I think how that affects us and our ability to relate to God and how that can kind of throw people off track and kind of derail them to some degree. I think the enemy is very aware of that. Yeah. And so I think it's one of those redeemable moments. And maybe that's why I was so drawn to a moment like Father's Day, such a natural moment for us to kind of stop and breathe and go, look, us as men, us as fathers, in the room, man, if Christ be our King, if that's what's happening, if God be Father to us, then man, let's engage this and let's be a part of the remedy of how God is kind of redeeming fatherhood and redeeming some things there. And so, anyways, I was very drawn to that concept, and so it's interesting because I there was one whole section that I was just like I can't do this on Sunday. It involved talking about the emotional aspect of who we are as dads and stuff like that. But it actually came up. Had a great conversation with a couple in our church, incredible people. He actually has a background in psychology, so when we talked, he's incredibly intelligent, and then has this background in psychology. So he, we were starting to. I shook his hand and said, "Hey, good to see you guys." And he just went into it. He was like, "Hey, I wanted to let you know, just to affirm some of the things that you were talking about, because we really landed on the concept of like modeling is your biggest weapon as a father, to help shape and mold is to model it in front of them more than what you say. And he looked at me and said, and I think it's like we know this, but to hear it from somebody where this is their area of expertise, like this is their area of study, he's like, what you said is right. We, all of us, but children especially, all will do primarily what we see and not necessarily what we hear them say to us. That's really the psychology of it. Even the science behind that will show that's really what we gravitate towards.
Yeah.
As human beings, that's what we do. We tend to emulate what is modeled to us, what is shown to us, more than what is told to us.
Yeah.
And so it's that old adage, you do what I say and not as I do.
Right.
Well,
it never works out that way.
That's not the way it works. And so I thought it was fascinating having that conversation with him, because he was like, no, what you were saying is right. We have to change, the way that we approach it and make sure that it's not, do as I say, not as I do, but it's, hey, do as I do, because I'm doing what is proper, what is right, what is godly,
Yeah.
And so I thought that was great, to kind of have that confirmation of what we were dealing with, But one of the things that I did not get into, that I actually cut out of it wasn't even in the sermon for the day, because I just thought it might be too messy for that kind of a moment, but was really the emotional aspect of who we are as fathers. I think we tend to see, the women in the room, that the mom, the wife, whatever role they may have at the moment, we tend to see them as the emotional ones.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're more sensitive or whatever. I guess as a general rule, don't want to offend anybody, but I think we tend to see them as the emotional ones. When in reality, we as men, we're incredibly emotional. I mean, we approach everything emotionally. And so
usually it comes out in anger.
Yeah, we don't tend to see aggression, intensity, anger. We don't tend to want to say that those things are emotional, but every single one of those things are emotional.
Right.
Even our attempts at being emotionally disconnected, like just being emotionless, is an emotion in and of itself. We don't want to deal with any of it. Well, that's an emotion. That's us responding emotionally, that we want to disconnect and not have to deal with anything emotionally. Even if we're emotionally unavailable, that's a problem. Like, that's an emotion. That's a problem. And I don't think we tend to want to see it that way, but we are incredibly emotional. As men, as husbands, certainly as fathers, we are incredibly emotional. And even a part of, if you look at it from the Christian aspect, the biblical aspect of sanctification, God gives us children, and it sanctifies us. It pushes back up against the selfishness that's in me, the issues that are in me, the things that, it rises all that stuff up to the top so that I can see it, right? So if you're an angry person, if you got kids, that's probably gonna come out of you, and you're gonna see how maybe emotionally unstable you actually are. And so, because we're incredibly emotional, and I think that's one of the aspects of fatherhood that we don't like to talk about, because we don't want to talk about our feelings because we don't feel like it, and so we don't want to deal with it. But we're incredibly emotional. So I think one of the things that, when I think about provoking our children, and some of the things that we talked about there, and then our ability to discipline and instruct, I think a lot of, I hate using the term, but for lack of better terms, one of the keys, I think, to that is learning how to be emotionally stable. I think we as men, we make the mistake of living in emotional extremes. So like I said, one extreme can be, I'm completely emotionally disconnected. Like, I don't connect emotionally. I just want to come home, blank out my mind because I've done stuff all day long at work. I just want to come home, disconnect, sit in my chair, grab something to drink, and just sit in my chair, watch the game, and just sit there. That's what I want to do. I just want to completely disconnect, and then I walk into this house full of whatever is going on.
Usually
that
craziness.
Day. Whatever's going on that day, right? And so I walk into that, but I just want to disconnect. And so then I'm responding emotionally still, trying to keep things away, right?
Yeah.
Or a lot of us, we swing to the other end and we live out on this emotional extreme place where we just fly off the handle, or everything's intense, everything's heightened, everything's aggressive, everything's right. So we walk into that chaos, or we walk into that, somebody's upset or whatever, and it's just, and it just explodes,
Right.
because we live out on this emotional extreme. Or I thought about it later. I thought, well, those aren't the two extremes. You can also have the extreme emotionally where everything's all good. Well, man, you're just easy going, everything's great. So then you walk in and you help nothing because you're just like, everything's cool. Well, maybe it's not, though.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not emotionally disconnected, but it's just you're walking in this euphoric, like, utopian, and you're just like, I don't, that's not real. That's not a real world. So you're disconnected even in that. And so, one of the things that I think the Lord's been doing with me, if I can be transparent about myself, even in the current season that I'm in, but this has been going on for a while. I think what the Lord's trying to do with me is to help me not live emotionally as an emotional extremist.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to become, and I think this is maybe one of those core factors of being a biblical father, is becoming an emotional anchor for your household. Like, you become this emotional fortress of safety, right, for your family. Like, I want my kids to be able to engage me emotionally because they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Right? I want to be the one that anchors them in a storm of emotions. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. I want to be the one that becomes this safe place of empathy. Mm-hmm. So I am engaged emotionally. So I can empathize with them when they cry and when they're heartbroken. I'm connected to that. And they can come to me because they know, Dad's not going to get angry at the person that hurt them. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna go extremist, and I'm just gonna I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be there to empathize with them, and then teach them and us deal with what we need to deal with that other person. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. Yeah. However that works out, but Dad's not just gonna fly off the handle and not actually empathize with where they are.
Right.
Right? Because I think sometimes we tend to do that. And so I want to be that. I want to be that place of where I can, man, if my son is weakened by something and he cries, I want to be able to cry with him, and I want to be able to sit there, but not live out on the extreme where we blubber and whine. Mm-hmm. Do you see the difference? You know what I mean? Like, that's different to me. Yeah. It's to be able to sit there in that moment and weep with him if we need to weep, right? Mourn if he needs to mourn. Like, so many scriptures begin to come to my mind about even the Christian life in general, man. We weep with those that we watch Jesus walk with this incredible emotional stability. He's able to weep in moments where that's needed to relate and to connect. Yeah. But then he does have righteous anger. There's moments where, the anger becomes it can be holy. It can be a righteous thing. But I'm controlled. I'm not right. I'm angry at the right thing. Okay, right. I respond intensely towards the right thing. See, I want my kids to see Dad as emotionally stable, an emotionally stable fortress of safety, right? Yeah. That's the word that keeps coming to my mind. I want to be a fortress. I want to be a rock. I want to be, I want to be a sure foundation. Who does that sound like? Right. Then that sounds like our Heavenly Father. That's who He is. And so in my attempts to reflect Him, I'm not going to be perfect at it, but He's perfect. He's the perfect fortress. He's the perfect rock. He's the perfect stability, right? He never changes, right? And so I want to reflect that to the best of my ability so that when my kids come to me, I can continue to point past me to Him and show them where that strength comes from, show them where that stability comes from in me when they're like, Dad, how can you, right? How can you respond this way? How are you able to do that? I can point them to the one greater than me. I can point them to the greater Father. And I think that's one of the things that I think we miss in fatherhood is we don't understand how our ability to be an emotional anchor in our family is so important. Yeah. God's incredibly crucial to how we can even relate to them. Because all the extremes that I just mentioned, even those three extremes emotionally, alienate us from our kids. Right. And alienate us from reality. They make us somebody that can't be trusted. They make us somebody that can't be leaned on, right? Because we're just tossed by by everything, or we just ignore everything, right? So one way or the other, we are doing a disservice to our children when we're not emotionally anchored. And our emotional anchor is our Heavenly Father, is His work in Christ for us. We find that anchor, that cornerstone, that ability to stay stable through difficulties, to stay stable through emotional roller coasters of life. We remain that, because if we learn how to do that, man, our family will cling to us. Our family will run to us because we can be trusted with how they're feeling. Right. We do a lot of damage. I know I have. I've done great damage sometimes over the years when I'm not that. Right. I damage them emotionally, and then I kind of have to rebuild that. Right. And I don't want to be that. I want to consistently be a place where they can come and find safety for their emotions. And so our ability to do that is crucial. I just didn't get into that because, again, man, that's a big.
That's a huge topic.
That's a huge topic that maybe would be better reserved for, another venue or another particular area. So I left it all the way out.
Right.
But I think it's important.
Yeah.
For fathers to hear that it's okay to be emotional. It's okay because you are. So it's really not. I don't need to be so emotional. Or, man, I need to become this emotional thing. It's no. It's just stop being an emotional extremist.
Right. And
find that ground where you can be anchor, where you can be safety, where you can be a rock.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I really liked how you didn't point, because you could have easily gone to, I know a lot of you don't want to be like your dad, or you don't want to be like this and stuff like that. And you really pointed towards the Father, the entire sermon and stuff, which I thought was great, because we can lose focus and we can say we don't want to be this way, we don't want to be this way, but then lose focus on the Father and stuff. So I thought you did a really great job with that. You went to the book of Ephesians. Whenever you're talking about disciplining and instructing your child in the ways of the Lord.
Right.
But also before that, when we went over Ephesians, I don't know how many weeks ago. But it didn't feel like too far long ago that we were just talking about Ephesians here. But it mentions the marriage and stuff, between the husband and wife and stuff. Could you talk about the dynamic a bit, about being a father and how that example with your marriage and how that affects your children? And not only are you trying to be a good husband, because I know all of us, everyone who calls himself a husband is trying to be a good husband. And then if you're a father, you're trying to be a good father as well. Yeah. How does that go hand in hand?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the scriptures do, and Ephesians, it connects the two. I mean, it flows pretty naturally. It goes marriage, and then it goes kids and parents collectively together.
Right.
And then it just addresses the fathers in that last sentence. Hey fathers, I got an extra charge for you. Here's where
stop picking on your kids.
Yeah, here's where you need to be careful.
Right.
that you tend to do this.
Yeah.
And so. So it obviously connects actually pretty brilliantly. I will say this, I think it's the same as what I think we would talk about the marriage doing for the world in general. It says in that text in Ephesians 5, the tail end of it, it says this is a great mystery, this mystery of the husband and wife in marriage, but I'm talking about Christ in the church.
Right.
Like that's the picture that it's meant to paint for the world, that's what it's talking about.
Yeah.
And so I think that where that's most effective is in your home with your kids.
Right.
That as you as a husband, treat your wife well. But honestly, I think it would be the reciprocal of that too. I think that's when we bring mom into the mix as well. Is that as she, is living well with the husband and responding well, and that when mom and dad get on the same page when it comes to that marriage and its ability to reflect the this great gospel, this great good news about Christ and man, His grace and His mercy and His love and kind of how all of this works and how He loves us and how He pushes through, right? I think it's one of those things where yes, I think that's something that the whole world can see, but if you use it, and who's going to see you most in that role? Honestly, who's going to see you behind the closed doors where the smiles aren't put on?
Right.
Who's going to see you in that moment? It's going to be your kids.
Right.
You might close a door, but they hear you.
Yeah.
Right? And so, one of the things that I told the gentleman that I talked to with the psychology thing is I said, and I didn't say it on Sunday, and I meant to, I think we'd actually be surprised at how quickly our kids pick up on our inconsistencies. Right? Yeah. The duplicitousness of our lives. And I think sometimes that's more clearly seen with how we treat our spouse. I think that's where they see a lot of our inconsistencies is as they watch how we deal with each other. And so I think if we really boil it down, I think that's one of the biggest things we have an opportunity to do as husband and wife. If we can connect and grasp what Christ is doing there in us, and I take up my role as a husband and do what I need to do, and April specifically for me, takes up her role as a wife, and we do that well, and we model that well. Again, not perfectly, but we model that well.
Right.
I think we have an incredible opportunity to show the gospel, right? To show what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus to our kids. As much as we can do that for the world in our marriages, to our neighbors, to our coworkers, right? To our friends, what it looks like. Who's going to see us more, and actually who's probably going to see us in more honest places. Yeah. Our kids are. Our kids are going to see us in the depth of our brokenness. Yeah. More than anyone. Right. And so, our kids, my wife and I, we tend to be fairly open, and our kids have been privy to a lot of, dark times, a lot of dark things that we've had to deal with, a lot of things that we've had to roll through over the years. I mean, they've seen it, and they've been a part of it, right? And so, I think it's one of those things that we do. We have an incredible way of reflecting who Jesus is and how He works, as the husband and the wife, man, are forgiving one another and walking with one another and not holding things against one another, right? All of those things that we think about and how we can relate to one another, supporting one another, prayer, even the disciplines of our Christian faith, going to church together, reading the Word together, praying together. I mean, doing all of those, when they see mom and dad do that, it's got an incredible effect. And so I think it's inseparable. Yeah. Right? It's inseparably linked. Right. With how you are as a husband. Okay, if I bring it back down to just the men, because that's who we were primarily talking to. If it's inseparably linked to how you are as a husband to how you will be as a father, those two things will go hand in hand, because that's where they'll see inconsistencies if you're not careful. If you're like, man, I'm all in with my kids, and you're this way with your kids, but then you're not with her. Right. You're not with mom. They're going to see the inconsistencies there. They're going to see a lot of the things that are there, and they'll pick up on it faster than you think they will. Yeah. And that's the reason why I think, you have to be prepared to ask for forgiveness often. And I think sometimes they need to see you ask for forgiveness from your wife too. I think they need to see mom have to forgive you. Right. To see some of that stuff played out in front of them. Yeah. I think it has an incredible opportunity. I mean, I think you do. I think you have an incredible opportunity to let them see the love of Christ and what it looks like to follow Him. Yeah. It's your opportunity to model that. I mean, that's one of the biggest areas, because that's what the Scriptures would say. It's one of the biggest models we have to show what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus, is that relationship in the natural sense. It's that relationship. And so who's got a front row seat to that? Right. Well, Corbin and Awen do. Yeah. Well, God put it all together in the Scripture and stuff, and it was for that reason, to show how it works hand in hand. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So I thought that was well said. So, thanks. Thank you. If y'all missed this last Sunday, again, check it out. We'll have it on our Facebook link below. And then next week, we'll be here again. We'll be but we'll resume our We Are FLC series. What's this coming week? We're doing We Connect. We Connect. Yeah. It's going to be a good one.
And so,
it's gonna be good.
Yeah, so y'all come and check it out this coming Sunday, 10:30. And then also I want to let you know that we have baptisms coming up on July 15th. And so if you want to be baptized, feel free to, you can call us. There's a few ways you can get a hold of us. You can call us here at the church. You can also email us at info@freedomlifechurch.net. And then if you're here on Sunday, you can fill out one of our Connect cards and check that you want to be baptized. Fill it out, put it in the offering bucket, and then so that we have a record that you're wanting to be baptized, so we can get a list going. And so it's gonna be a fun Sunday. And so thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great week. See you later. Bye.